This week, they are Labour MP for South Shields, Emma Llewellyn, and the Independent, formerly UKIP Euro MP for the North East, Jonathan Arnott. Emma Llewellyn, Jeremy Corbyn's speech got a big reception in the conference hall, but isn't the Labour agenda outlined there just simply too left-wing to win over centrist floating voters?
I don't think it's too left-wing at all. We're responding to the needs of our country, and we're setting out an agenda both domestically and internationally that changes the old consensuses and shows that under Labour things would be very different. We would have things based on what people are telling us they want. We'd put the public back at the heart of public services.
But there are some voters, the polls today, one in the Observer, 3 points behind the Conservatives, when they've got all those problems. Doesn't it show that there are still a lot of voters in the middle who are unconvinced by Jeremy Corbyn and worried simply that you'll be too radical?
Well, some voters may think that, but I don't put much sway in polls after what we've seen happen with our politics over the past few years. I think, if we went to a general election, we would win. With those policies. OK,
well, just one of those proposals, taking 10% of company shares, giving them to workers, wouldn't that just put off investment, put off entrepreneurs?
Well, these models are used in Germany, France, Norway, Finland, the USA, and what they've actually done is increased worker productivity. At the moment, we have the lowest productivity levels since the 1820s. You've got workers who are creating the wealth in companies, yet the fat cats at the top earn 100 times more than them. Surely this is a common sense policy. If you're invested in something, you have shares in it, you care about it more.
Jonathan Arnott, share ownership, isn't that just a way of encouraging workers, encouraging productivity?
Sure, and if a company wishes to do that voluntarily, then that is absolutely the company's choice, and it's perfectly reasonable for a company to do that. But what we've got here is a proposal for this to be enforced, for it to be coming from the state, to be telling companies what they must do. I think that's something that really will put off big business in a massive way. Now,
though, it's not a very big share of a company,
well,
is it?
If you tell a company they've got to give away 10% of the company effectively, that is something that is going to have a huge impact, particularly on those big companies, and there's an awful lot of jobs that are likely to be lost as a result. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all in favour of doing more for small businesses, but you don't have to just give big business a massive kicking to try and do it.
Well, Emma, just put that to you. Won't companies just move away? Big companies can.
Well, big companies have already come out and said they support it. Lush, for example, the big cosmetics company, they've said that they think this is a good idea. The IPPR thinks it's a good idea. And like I said earlier, it works in other countries. At the minute, you have record levels of in-work poverty. Jonathan should want to do something about that. The Labour Party does, and that's why we're doing things like this.
Yeah, but the difference is that what you don't want to do is have the state enforce that on companies. And if a company wishes to do something like that, I'm all in favour of companies choosing to voluntarily do that. And if Lush wants to do that, that is absolutely fine and fantastic that they should do that if they feel that it increases productivity. But this is fundamentally not for the state to tell us.
Another proposal, free childcare of 2-, 3- and 4-year-olds. Where's the money going to come from for this stuff?
Well, the current model isn't working. That Cameron introduced and the Tories have continued to roll out. And we are working up our plans from conference now. How much is it going to cost then? How much? We are busy working up our plans from conference as we speak.
OK, a debate that we will no doubt be returning to. Jonathan Arnott, in that film in Whitby, we spoke to quite a few people who were apparently changing their mind on Brexit, although that was a town that voted Leave. As a passionate Leave supporter, what would you say to those people who are having second thoughts?
Well, you've seen in that film people having second thoughts on both sides. Some people who voted Remain who thought that that perhaps now we should be getting on with it and actually implementing the result of the referendum. But you know what? I think that it was a great exercise in democracy.
So
having
down
that
the
referendum.
garden path, well, I think that fisherman put it, there are people who feel that they did not get the full picture and they did not realise the situation that we are in now.
I think there are people on both sides who feel exactly that. There are a lot of Leave voters who felt that they were lied to consistently by a Remain campaign during that referendum. But you know what? That referendum didn't happen in a vacuum. You know, we had European elections. We had a general election that mandated that referendum. We had the referendum. We then had a general election in 2017. You know what? We've had 4 votes on this already.
The poll in the last few weeks in the North East seems to suggest a shift. People now head-to-head, evenly Leave and Remain in this region. If there is a big shift, do you not think that strengthens the case for a second vote?
Well, actually, if you look before the referendum campaign last time, before both sides had the 50-50 split on airtime and everything, Remain was 10 points ahead in the polls before that referendum campaign. And of course, Leave then went on to win substantially. So actually, perhaps what we're seeing here is that you've got a very well-funded, very organised campaign trying to turn back the clock, trying to rerun a referendum rather than any genuine shift in public opinion.
Well, Emma Buck, we heard in that film in Whitby also people saying that the government should just get on with Brexit. Shouldn't Labour back the Prime Minister and not just threaten to vote down any deal?
Well, we've said to the Prime Minister, if she comes up with a deal that protects jobs and works for the economy, has no hard border in Northern Ireland, then of course we would back that plan. I sincerely wish...
Which is the main thing on the table. You said that you're very likely to oppose.
Well, I've seen Theresa May over the course of these negotiations disagree with herself, disagree with her own cabinet and disagree with our backbenchers. She's all over the shop on this. I'm angry the mess we're in, thanks to the charlatans in Richard's ex-party and the Tory party. But I am not in favour of rerunning and having a second referendum.
So people in your constituency are not supporting that, even though there are many people, your own members across the Labour Party, who really want it?
The people in my constituency who I speak to on a regular basis, even people who voted Remain, are now saying that they would vote Leave. At the end of the day, a second referendum for me would make a mockery of democracy. We live in a parliamentary democracy, and what we should be doing is our very best to get the best deal.
Jonathan Arnott, the Prime Minister talking about the importance of keeping the supply chains running for companies like Nissan. We've had Toyota over the last 24 hours warning about production stopping entirely if there is a hard Brexit. Do you not think that we have to reach some kind of compromise?
Look, I want us to end up in a situation where we have a deal. Now, in order to do that, you do have to make very robust preparations. I think the Prime Minister has dragged her heels on this quite a lot. You do have to make sure that you're properly prepared for no deal. And in any negotiation, you've got to be prepared for things not working out the way you want to, if you want to get the best deal that you possibly can, because you have to be prepared to walk away. Now, that having been said, we do need to make sure that we, Europe are our neighbours. They should be our friends. They should be our allies. Okay. And therefore, we should be seeking a deal, but perhaps we should be focusing more on the trade side of that deal.
The Prime Minister talks about other opportunities. Isn't there a positive side for some of our exporters, potentially from Brexit?
Well, I don't know, because nobody knows what the final deal's going to look like as yet. I wish that the Prime Minister had genuinely held cross-party talks away from the House of Commons chamber, which is full of theatrics and posturing, and we could have come to some good solutions.
A debate that will run and run. Emma Buck, David Miliband, of course, your predecessor at South Shields. Some people would have watched him and thought he was the right man to lead Labour. Do you agree?
I voted for him in the leadership election, but that's not where we are now, and we have a leader in Jeremy Corbyn.
But do you think that some of the centrist agenda, effectively, that he was putting out there is the right one for the party, rather than, what some would say was a far-left agenda?
I think our party's a broad church, and we are moving with the times. We are responding to what people are telling us on the streets and in our communities, and the policies that we are putting out there are well received. Our groundbreaking manifesto last year was phenomenal, the response we got from that. And I'm sure if we went to a general election, we would win it hands down now with the policies that we've developed since then.
So would he have been a better leader than Jeremy Corbyn?
Well, we're talking about different times, aren't we? We're talking about a few years ago compared to now. I'm talking about now, the situation we're in now. Jeremy Corbyn is our leader. He helped us push forward a transformative manifesto, and that's the direction we're leading in, and it's a direction I'm happy with.
But when we come to the broader philosophical point here, isn't he speaking actually for a lot of Labour supporters, past and present, who feel that the present direction of the party has basically left the centre ground behind? They no longer feel part of it.
Well, I think the Labour Party is a broad church, like anything, and we're an organisation that moves and goes through changes, and that's the same for any organisation.
Well, you only had to be at the conference. A lot of criticism of Tony Blair's government. I mean, there is a feeling that the party has moved direction and everyone is not welcome, or at least some ex-Blairites don't feel welcome.
I was at party conference as well, and there was a lot of praise of Tony Blair's government, so it's...
Well, not much of Tony Blair, was there?
Swings and roundabouts.
Jonathan Arnott, big week ahead, moving on to next week for Theresa May. Obviously, last year, by any standards, a conference disaster for her. How does she have to find her voice, literally, in what she says and, the way she puts it across?
I mean, I'm no fan of Theresa May, so it's far be it from me to give her too much advice. But I think the one thing that has been lacking from Theresa May is that determination, that leadership, and really getting across to the general public a confidence in what the government wants to deliver. And far too often it seems to me that she comes across as being terrified, whether it's terrified of her own backbenchers, whether it's terrified of the Labour Party, whether it's terrified of the European Union when negotiating. Actually, I think what is really needed is a little bit of strength and a little bit of actual leadership. And I think perhaps a lot of people will be looking for that from the Conservative Party
and
conference.
cough sweets as well, perhaps.
Well, maybe.
But